Welcome to the Mold Matters Podcast. Whether you are looking for help recovering from mold illness or just want to learn more about creating a safe environment for your family, this podcast is the place for you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mold Matters Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Evans, and I'm with my co-host,
Mike Adams. Hi,
Mike
Jer.
Adams and friend. Hey,
Hi
how's
there.
it going?
Great.
Hey,
Doing great.
Before I even ask how you're doing,
Yeah.
I must make a request of our listeners to subscribe to the podcast.
Yes, and if you need any help with that, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask.
Yeah,
I don't know how to do that stuff.
yeah, it's pretty easy to do.
Is it?
This is we've never asked for subscribers before, and anyways, we love your subscription, and Mold Matters wherever you find your podcasts, Apple Podcasts.
It's
Spotify.
picking up a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you?
It's fun. Yeah.
You've gotten me trained to hear, like when people say stuff, I'm thinking of alternative, like play on words and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you always do that.
Yeah.
I just thought you said moldmentum. The moldmentum.
I like that though, Jer. That was very good.
It's your fault.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's take that moldmentum
Okay.
into our topic today.
Yeah, let's do.
So our topic today, we'd like to talk about common myths related to mold.
And I have a hard time saying the word myth. Myth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you?
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I don't have to say it the rest of the show, right?
Not unless you want to.
Yeah. Okay.
So mold myths, yeah. So there are a bunch of mold myths. I think if we were to define mold myths, it's just that those things that we all kind of hear and maybe believe and perpetuate.
It's
that aren't true.
crazy. It's crazy the misinformation that's out there.
Yeah.
It is just insane.
And if you're not in the profession, I can see how it happens.
Yeah.
We're not gonna. We try not to call anyone out, but there are some actually quote unquote reliable sources out there that give some misinformation, in my
Right.
opinion, or
Right.
information that we disagree with. So you got to be careful, but let's share with you some of the mold myths we've encountered and what the actual reality is. And let's just kind of go down the line, Mike. I'm going to pose some of these and we'll just chat about them. You can tell me why it's a myth or maybe why it's not, but I think most of these are myths.
Swinging a myth.
Swing the myth.
Okay.
Okay, myth number 1. Mold can be eliminated completely from the indoor environment.
Yes, that is incorrect. And obviously the reason why is because mold is in the outside air. It is part of life. And it's just mold is in the air. We've had people after we treat their home say, "Hey, I don't want to open my windows and my doors because I don't want to let the mold in." Well, that's a really bad approach.
Yeah.
Fresh air is your friend.
Yeah.
Mold that's in the air from the outside, that's not going to hurt anything. Where you get into trouble is when you have a house that has a number of different areas that is growing mold or sporing mold, and it's often followed by a leak or a flood, and then you've got a real catastrophe on your hands. But once that's all taken care of, your outdoor air coming into your house, that's a good thing. It's fine. And
Yeah.
it's like the little Petri dishes that you can buy at Home Depot or Lowe's or,
Yeah.
we have people call all the time and they say, "Hey, I bought one of these and I grew mold. Do I have a problem?" Well, I don't know. It's if you put one of those outside, you'd grow mold too.
Yeah.
And we know your outside air is good. So it's a tough call.
Yeah. Is your favorite word? Mold is ubiquitous.
It is ubiquitous. Yeah.
I like to say, based on all the mold testing I've done over the years, there are a lot of spores in the air everywhere. Some more
Yeah.
than others, but
Yeah.
very good chance you and I are breathing in lots of spores as we speak right now.
100% chance. Yeah.
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 And it's fine. I don't feel bad. Do you
Right.
feel
I feel moderately bad, but
bad? It's
I'm
not
okay.
bad.
I'll fight through it. Yeah.
Okay. Myth number 2.
Yeah.
Mold can be killed using bleach or cleaning products.
Not very well.
Talk about that. We've mentioned it before, but
Yeah. So one of the things that has always I thought has been interesting is when people say I use bleach to kill mold. Well, bleach will kill mold on a non-porous surface. And in fact, it doesn't really even necessarily kill it, but you're gonna remove it just through the motion of scrubbing it with a rag and
Yeah.
getting rid of it. But the real challenge with mold is when it gets into non-porous areas, and because for two reasons. Say you have mold on a 2x4 in your framing, right?
Yeah.
That mold has gotten into kind of the depths of that porosity of that 2x4.
Yeah.
Well, if you were just to spray a cleaning fluid on there or bleach, likely the surface tension of that bleach is not going to be able to get into where that mold is growing
Right.
down in there. So you're not going to get a complete kill.
Yeah.
And we know if you can't get a complete kill, then you really haven't done anything.
Yeah. The danger of partial kills is you aggravate the
Aggravate it.
leftover
Yeah.
and make that
And it-
even worse.
It kind of comes back with a vengeance.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, I've even researched some stuff about bleach and well, specifically sodium hypochlorite, which is the active in
Mhm.
bleach
Right.
against mold. And I've even read that it's pretty good at some bacterias and viruses.
Yeah.
There's some molds it's okay at, but if you really stack it up against the big hitters as far as sterilants and disinfectants, it's just not
No.
it's not very good. Plus,
No.
it's got a strong odor. You can't use it on soft fabrics.
It's not crazy great on your personal health.
Yeah, it's not. I
Uh,
don't love
it's-
breathing it in.
Yeah.
It's not great for that. So it's just not a good solution. It'll never provide the comprehensive solution that you need when you're dealing with
No.
mold. So, number 3, if you don't see mold in a home, Mike, there is no mold.
That is a myth. For one thing that just jumps out to me is that oftentimes you have mold in your HVAC system, in the
Oh yeah,
in the ductwork and the registers. Well, obviously you're not going to be able to see that.
yeah,
And we often have customers say, whenever my air conditioner turns on, I can smell the mold. Well,
Mhm.
that's a case where you're not going to be able to see it anywhere.
yeah,
Another situation I've seen often is, you have mold that's different colors, some black mold, some white, some green mold,
yeah.
all different colors. Well, if you have a house that is, for example, has a lot of white trim
Mhm.
in the window sills,
Yeah.
you may not see the mold because the mold's white.
Yeah.
And I had a house that the people were really sick, and I went through that house with every inch I looked, and I just couldn't see anything that jumped out at me until I went down into their crawl space, got on my back, and kind of started doing the reverse army crawl.
Yeah, the shimmy down
Yeah.
there.
And all of a sudden, the white mold showed up like crazy on the paper backing of the insulation in that crawl space. So I
Oh.
realized, oh my word, this house is full of white mold, not black mold.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So see, that's a tricky one because there's a reason why, we always say a lot of people are sick and they don't even know it's mold.
yeah,
If they had a big patch of mold on the wall, they would probably
then
know.
that's
that-
easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
an
I'm
easy one.
sick. There's a big patch.
Yeah.
It's probably that big patch. But so often it's I'm sick. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
And like you said, either it's hidden and we can't see it, or there are cases where it's, your classic mold load.
Yeah.
It's a ton of little pockets that aren't necessarily ultra visible, but they're all contributing to a poor air quality in the home.
Correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, don't
Don't-
discount your home if you don't see it
Right.
as being the culprit of your health,
Yeah.
or saying there's no mold in the home. Okay, number 4, dead mold is harmless. Dead mold can't make you sick.
Dead mold. That's the myth. Is dead mold can still make you sick.
Yeah,
Right. That is an absolute myth.
it's kind of a debate out in the mold remediation field. Talk about your thoughts.
I don't even think it's a debate. The people who usually argue this are traditional remediators that want to try to pound home a point to us that, look, you can't treat a home with a vapor or a fog and kill mold, because even if you kill it, the dead mold can still make you sick. I always come back with, show me the test, show me the report, show me anything,
Any data?
that shows dead mold can make you sick. But there's a couple of reasons why there's a confusion out there.
Yeah,
One is you'll often talk to these guys, and they'll preface their conversation by saying, well, dead mold can be defined as dormant or inactive mold. No, that's not true at all. Dead mold is only defined as being dead. Dormant or inactive mold is dormant or inactive mold. That can still make you sick under certain conditions. Dead mold cannot make you sick, and I'll stand by that till the day I die. That it's a complete, total misunderstanding. I think I've told this story before on a podcast, but I believe the reason for this is for years people thought bleach killed mold. So they would bleach it, and it would look better for a while, so they thought, well, we killed it. And then invariably somebody in the house is still sick. Well, along comes a traditional remediator, and he says, well, I understand you killed it with the bleach, but dead mold, we realize now dead mold can still make you sick, so it's got to be torn out and removed, and you have to have this massive bill and this massive construction project.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't until the early 2000s that there started getting reports out and studies that showed, oh, wow, bleach actually doesn't kill mold.
Yeah.
And so all that time that people thought, well, we killed it with bleach and I'm still sick, so dead mold can make me sick. Well, you didn't kill it in the first place. You never did kill it with the bleach. And nobody went back and set the record straight.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we have this billion-dollar industry formed around traditional tear out, where the entire idea of tear out is it has to be torn out, because even if we kill it with something, it can still make you sick. Well, it's all a myth. Not saying that some things don't need to be torn out, but by and large, most homes can be made healthy without tearing things out. And if the mold is truly denatured or dead, we call it denatured, it's not going to make you sick.
Yeah. So they made a big swing and a myth again.
It's swing and a myth. Yeah.
Some of those guys out there. Yeah. And if you think of, we've mentioned this before too. If you really believe that the visible portion of mold is just a fraction of what's going on in the house.
Right.
So say you do kill that mold, it's very likely that's not even what's making you sick. It's
correct.
everything else.
Yeah,
right?
that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I often think about it this way. Okay, you had a flood in your basement, and all of a sudden you're growing mold, or you can see visible mold on that wall. Well, was there a memo that went out to every mold spore in the house that said everybody report to the basement and start growing on this wet spot? No, that's not the way it works at all.
Yeah.
It's that whole house had an elevated mold load. It had spores throughout the home, and the spores that were in that area where the moisture occurred have started to manifest themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's go on to myth number 5, and then we'll do a commercial break. All black mold is toxic mold. Or I'm gonna do 2 myths kind of in one. Black mold is deadly. Well, let's do the first one. All black mold is toxic mold.
I would say no.
Yeah.
No, there's molds that are black. The thing about the color of mold is you can have, for example, Stachybotrys. Stacky can be green.
Yeah.
It could be black. It's dependent on the food source that it's consuming, and its life cycle, where it's at in its life cycle.
Yeah.
As far as what color it is.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
to just say, oh, it's black mold, it must be deadly, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, I was just listening to, we use a company that uses artificial intelligence to analyze mold under a microscope, under scanners.
Mm-hmm.
I was just listening to some information from them, and they were talking about how in their analyses, if you catch Stacky really early, it's got a white pigment to it as well. Yeah. And then kind of like you're saying, as it gets older, it can go into the greens and then into the blacks. And so, yeah.
I just thought about the term artificial intelligence, Jer. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of myself a lot.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I can look stuff up.
Yeah.
But I'm artificially intelligent.
It's kind of a different AI you're talking about.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well let's take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a sec.
Order your air filters through Pure Products with the February Filter Frenzy Sale. Get 20% off all filters that are pre-treated with an antimicrobial agent, creating a healthy environment for you and your family. Visit mypureproducts.net and use promo code FilterFun20 for a discounted and pre-treated filter today.
And we're back. Thanks for that message from our sponsors. I did want to just revisit number 5 again real quick.
Okay.
The comment I made about black mold is deadly. I mean, some of these are nuanced. Is mold deadly, or is it just something that can cause a sinus issue? I don't know. What would you say is black mold is deadly if someone says that?
You know what? There are so many variables involved in even that statement that black mold is deadly. I think before the show, you and I were talking, and I said, well, is a heart attack deadly? Yeah, it can be,
Yeah.
or if you have, if all the stars are lined up and you have the right, medical attention right away, it's not deadly.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing is with mold. It depends on the person. It depends on the type of mold. It depends on the how much mold they're being exposed to.
Other stressors in their life.
Other stressors in their-
other
yeah.
medical conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to say,
Yeah.
whether it's deadly or not. It can be.
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's just bad for you. Okay. So I just wanted to clear that one up. Number
Yeah.
6, Mike. This is kind of an interesting one that we've talked about before. Mold testing is critical in, doing investigations in the home. Absolutely critical.
Absolutely a myth. You know me, Jer. I absolutely hate most mold tests.
Yeah.
I think they're nonsense. Just to touch on it just real briefly, a spore trap test where you pull in 75 liters of air, which is the industry standard. That's a tiny, tiny section of air within a tiny room of the home, and it's a tiny segment of time within a 24-hour cycle, or even bigger cycle. It's just such a hit and miss. And the other thing I'll just say real quickly is mold is either growing, sporing, or dormant at all times, unless it's completely dead, right?
Mhm.
But growing, sporing, and dormant. When you take an air quality test or a spore trap test, you're only testing for mold that is sporing. So you already have discounted growing happy mold
Mhm.
and mold that's gone dormant.
Yeah.
You're not testing at all for that.
Yeah.
So there are other tests that people have come along with because they're so frustrated with spore trap tests that I think are better, but they all kind of have their own limitations.
Yeah. So I think, all of these are a little nuanced. Critical is maybe the wrong word there, but we've all had those scenarios where, again, we back to that wall's got mold on it. And we talked about this before the show. A lot of industry professionals say, if you see it and smell it, why are you testing it?
Right,
Even the
yeah.
EPA.
Yeah, you're
But
throwing
then
your
you-
money away.
But then you've
Yeah.
done some certification courses where they say no, right?
Right. Yeah, they actually talk out of both sides of their mouth a little bit because they'll talk about, can you identify mold visually? And the answer is always no, you can't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to make a point that I don't think they want anybody that's been certified through them to be a kind of a loose cannon out there and go out there and say, yeah, that looks like mold.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
I see where they're coming
Yeah,
from.
I see it. I see it as well. But I mean, look, if you've done this for any amount of time, it's pretty obvious when you see mold.
Yeah.
That's mold.
Yeah. Our basement flooded here. And We
Right.
started seeing some
This-
green black fuzzies on
Right.
on the
I've
floor.
said this.
boards.
I've said this to customers before. Well, let's think about what else could that be. It's just the list is real short of what else that could be.
Yeah.
You get this beautiful powdery pattern on a wall
Where there was water.
where there was water. I just don't know what else that could be. But you do have to be careful.
I
I mean,
know,
I
yeah.
get why they say
Yeah.
do a test,
Yeah.
identify it.
And it's a lot of it's an ethical thing in
It
many
is,
ways.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we all do testing, but you just have to be careful.
We had a technician years ago. I was actually really proud of him. That went out. The lady said, "I think it's mold behind my washing machine," and he said he looked at it real close and he said, "I actually licked my finger and tasted it," and he said, "That's Tide."
It was a white powder.
Yeah, it was laundry detergent. I was proud of him for figuring that out.
Yeah.
Didn't have to spend any lab fees to figure that one out. Didn't have to swab anything. Just
Not a recommended way to test for mold.
no, we do not recommend that, but
Just stab your finger, put it
very
on your mouth.
effective. Yeah,
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next one, Mike.
Okay.
No odor, no mold. Is that true? If there's no
No.
odor of no
No,
musty.
for two reasons.
Okay.
One is different molds have different smells, right? Some don't smell very strong at all. Some smell crazy strong.
Yeah.
And the other thing is everybody's sense of smell is different,
Yeah.
way different.
Yeah.
I used to say everybody smells different, but that doesn't sound right.
Yeah. There's two ways to interpret
Yeah,
that. Everyone
yeah.
smells
So
different.
don't say everybody smells different, but everybody, their sense of smell is different. And so, don't go. I mean, if you can smell mold, and we all know what that moldy, musty smell is, you've got mold in the
Yeah.
home. But don't assume that if I can't smell anything, that you don't have mold.
Yeah. It's kind of like there's nothing visible, meaning there's no mold, right?
Yeah.
It's similar. Just because there's no smell doesn't mean there's no mold.
Well, and the other thing is, if you're a homeowner, you go. There's a term for it called nose blind.
Yeah.
You go nose blind to your own home.
Yeah. If you've lived in a home, and then the mold event, the mold growth starts happening, it's very subtle.
Yeah.
And you become accustomed to it,
Yeah.
such that you're not going to notice it. Me, having never been there, comes into the home, I might notice it
Right.
because I'm not.
You
nose
probably would
blind.
notice it.
But
Yeah.
I'm nose blind to my own house,
Right.
not your
Yeah.
house. But yeah, and to your point, real quick, the different smells. I've been talking to one of our office personnel. She's been talking to a customer who said she thinks she has mold. They don't feel good every time they go in the master bedroom, and it smells like maple. And when I first heard this, I instantly went to, okay, I don't know what she's dealing with. It doesn't sound like mold. But as I kind of interacted a little more in this situation, I just remembered that some mold does put off kind of a sweet smell to it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have termed it maple, but
You know what else does? Is meth.
meth does too.
Meth does. Yeah.
We used to do meth myths.
Meth myth.
No, you're totally right.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, just yesterday, I was at a home doing a mold investigation, and as soon as I walked in, it had that. You start to recognize some of the sweet smells.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's that sweet mold smell that I
Yeah.
smelled. There's a few of them, and that
Yeah.
was one of them.
Yep.
And after I talked to the guy, I was frank with him. I was like, because there was one room that was particularly had that smell,
Yeah.
and I even asked him because it wasn't his room; it was his son's room. And I said, I was like, come in here. Like, do you smell a little bit of a sweet smell? He's like, yeah. Like, that's mold in my experience.
Right.
He's like, really? He's like, yeah, I can smell that. So, there's a lot that goes into the smell,
Yeah.
the smell issue, but it is a myth that no odor means no mold.
Yeah.
Next one, number 8, mold has no benefits.
Well, no, we can have a lovely salad with blue cheese dressing on it. That's a benefit to all of us.
Or a good old tablet of penicillin,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I remember taking that when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know people do have allergies to those, but yeah. Well, and then, there's this concept of, and I think it's good that we do this, but we recognize that without mold in this world, we probably wouldn't be alive.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It's got to break down
it breaks
things.
down.
Yeah.
Like we talk about how breaks down our houses when we have water issues.
Yeah.
Similarly, in the environment, it's breaking down.
So I'm gonna get really weird on you for a minute.
Yeah, go weird.
Okay. So I believe when the earth was created,
Uh-huh.
I believe God knew that we needed something to keep a balance, right?
Yeah.
The ecological balance, and mold was a big part of that plan.
Yeah.
But I also believe that that's why mold is mentioned in the Bible, because he realized that it's necessary, but it can also get out of control.
Yeah.
That's just my own weird.
Well, that's kind of like everything in life, right?
Yeah.
There's kind of an opposition in all things,
Right. Yeah.
so to speak, and it keeps us.
I've
in
often
check.
thought, why is that in the Bible? Why was that such a big deal that the Lord felt like he had to tell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So mold has some benefit. I mean, we can't just say mold's the worst thing, and it
Right.
kind of goes back to you can't get rid of it. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It has benefits. So that's number 8. Number 9, you shouldn't worry about a small spot of mold.
I think that's a myth. I think a
Okay.
small spot of mold could be a indicative of an elevated or elevating mold load.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should get your house checked
Yeah.
by someone that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you can have a mold issue without seeing any mold, then the size of a patch or the size of the visible mold isn't. You just can't use that as an indicator.
No,
you just really can't.
because that really is just okay. That's where the surface hits 60% humidity or more over an
Yeah.
extended amount of time.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So if you have a crazy dry house, except for one little area
Yeah,
that wants to grow mold, well, you could still have an elevated mold load in the home
yeah.
and not realize it because the house is dry.
Yeah. So to your point, it was 3 days ago. I was in a customer's house here locally, and it was one of those where I walked in and I instantly felt weird in the house. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh. And he shared about some of the water damage events. And he's like, what's really weird is we use a lot of lemons, and if we have a lemon just sit on the counter, especially if
Yeah.
it's open or cut open, within like a day it's got mold growing on it. And he's like,
That's a dead giveaway.
yeah. Dead giveaway that the elevated mold load,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
If you and this other one I had yesterday, the sweet smelling one, he's like, we put a little stool in our shower, and we were so surprised at how quickly that stool had mold all over it.
Yeah.
So kind of to your point, if the mold load is elevated, little things like that start to happen, right?
Right.
Whenever there's moisture, there it manifests.
It manifests.
If that's a
Yeah.
piece of fruit, if that's something you're putting in your shower, that could be a good indication, probably better than taking an air quality test.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to our last one, number 10. Your family physician will know exactly how to identify and treat mold illness.
Man, this is a tough one. It's really tough, but probably not. I speak, I feel like I know quite a bit about this because my son-in-law is actually a doctor. And he says, Mike, they just don't teach mold toxicity in med school. And we talked about it for a while, and he said that basically mold is it has so many variables to it that
It's complicated.
It's really complicated,
com-
and it's
yeah.
hard for anybody to wrap their brain around or wrap their arms around what's going on in a home, much less what's going on in their body.
Yeah.
And so unless they can have some kind of really solid data
Yeah.
to support their theories, they're probably not going to touch it.
Yeah. And so they do tend to focus, in my experience, on those few, there are a few kind of mold related illnesses that are a little more concrete, like infections, right?
Right.
Fungal infections, like you can see it, you can test that and be like, that's fungus.
Yeah.
I can give you this antifungal
Or you get aspergillosis.
aspergillosis.
They can test for that. You know.
Yeah.
But when we talk about these real sick people that end up going kind of the homeopathic route
Yeah.
or naturopathic route, it's because they've gone from doctor to doctor and been frustrated that they can't get any good answers.
Yeah.
And so they end up talking to doctors who are a little bit more open-minded about maybe it is your environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say, we talk about this. We beat this like we beat this drum quite a bit. But if you're in the boat of thinking you have mold illness, you may have to be open-minded as well, and might have to make a few rounds to different doctors to really find someone that can maybe help you through that.
And there are some amazing mold doctors out there.
Yeah.
They
It's
can-
getting bigger and bigger too.
Oh, in the
I mean,
last
we know doctors that
yeah.
have networks of doctors
Right.
that are, learning the protocols. And,
yeah.
and we've had them on our podcast. So
But it's a pretty new practice though. I mean, you
Yeah.
think about Dr. Shoemaker was kind of the pioneer of all this.
yeah,
And
maybe 20 years ago,
I think his first book was
Last-
published in 2000.
early 2000s.
Yeah, 2003, something like that.
Yeah, almost 20 years ago. Yeah. So, well, there you have it. There are undoubtedly more myths than these 10, but these are kind of the 10 major ones that we encounter.
Hopefully we didn't myth anything.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. Hopefully we didn't myth anything.
Yeah.
And I think some things that were mysteries before are now.
Yeah, we cleared up most of the mysteries. Yeah.
So, just by way of reminder, feel free to subscribe to our podcast. We'd love to have you as a listener. And
Yeah, if you have a button anywhere on your desk that says subscribe, hit that. Yeah.
and feel free, by the way, to reach out to us
Yeah.
if you want to connect with us and ask us questions, or if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, please reach out, and we'd be happy to consider your request. Thanks so much for joining. Until next time.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Mold Matters podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more in-depth information on mold illness and recovery.